Realtors, have you ever gotten almost through the closing when an unforeseen wrench gets thrown into the deal? How would you save the day? Or better yet, how could you have avoided the glitch to begin with? Real estate educator Josh Cadillac has the answers for you as he discusses deal-killing mistakes on the Royal Palmcast beginning right now.
You're listening to the Royal Palmcast, the show about all things real estate. From the production studios of the Royal Palm Coast Realtor Association in Fort Myers, Florida, here's your host, Jim Sanville.
Hello and welcome to the Royal Palmcast. I'm your host, Jim Sanville, here in Fort Myers, Florida. We're here in the studios of the Royal Palm Coast Realtor Association in Fort Myers, with offices in Cape Coral as well. I'm here today with a special guest we'll introduce you to in just a moment, as well as Jerry Johnson on the board. Jerry.
Hey, that's me.
Jerry, tell me something good.
Good morning, Jim. Well, we are having a great show today, a series of shows. This is going to be our third of three with a very enlightening and informative guest. And I'm just very engaging, and I'm looking forward to even this third show. Can't get enough. So let's get this one going.
All right. We got like 5 more after this, right?
only
you might
more.
say he is the Cadillac of guests, or is that joke been used already this hour? Yeah. His name is Josh Cadillac. The cat's out of the bag, and you may already be familiar with Josh if you've taken a real estate class or course or webinar here in Florida or elsewhere in the country. Josh has got lots of experience in almost every aspect of real estate and teaches classes and has lots of initials after his name from all those accreditations and certifications and all that stuff. So he knows his stuff, and we are thrilled to have him here. Welcome, Josh.
Thank you for having me.
Our pleasure. Our pleasure. Now, we've talked previously about a couple of other specific topics having to do with real estate. The one we want to focus in on today is kind of based on a course you did here, I think just last week at our PCRA, and that course is called How to Eliminate Deal-Killing Mistakes. You tell me it was a 4-hour course?
Yep.
There are really that many possible ways to mess up a deal.
I'm going to tell you, I think it was 160 slide presentation. I think I got through about 95 of them.
Wow.
There's that many.
Wow. Give me some examples, please.
All right. So home inspector comes back with a 87-page home inspection report, because that's what they look like now. Your customer goes from this look of being absolutely in love. I mean, like that first love with a house, to finding out that the home basically was, had a history as, I don't know, a back alley hooker or something like that. Like all
it was a brothel. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just all the magic is gone, right? And now they're not happy with the house. Who was the agent that found that house for them again? Oh, it was you? Now they're not happy with you either. How could you let me put an offer on this cesspool, right? And so this is a thing. It's a real thing, and it causes deals to die. And here's the interesting thing. It's not really your fault. This class, I like this class because it's different than most of my other classes. And actually, I wasn't even planning on writing this class. An agent walked up to me and said, why don't you do a class on how to handle home inspections? Because she had just had a deal die because of a home inspection. I was like, yeah, home inspections are a problem, I guess. I should do so. Well, you know what? The mortgage broker kills deals on me. The title company kills deals on me. Like, who are these other deal killers, right? And so I try to collect all the folks that aren't me, because I got like 12 other classes that are all about how to keep me from killing my deal. I figure I might as well write one about how to keep other people from killing my deal, because they can do it just as well as I can.
Interesting. All right. Tell me some of the deal killing suspects.
Well, you definitely have the mortgage broker.
Yeah.
We see that a lot. One of the things that I recommend as just an idea to do when I put offers in on properties, if I know that the mortgage brokers are inundated, which they are right now because of the low interest rates, there's a tremendous amount of refis going on.
Yeah.
I'll take and submit to the listing side my contract offer with a 30-day close on there. And then I'll also submit simultaneously with that a separate addendum extending the closing date for 15 days. And I'll call the agent up and I'll say, hey, look, I think you and I both kind of know that it feels like, and I don't know if this is true, but it feels like the mortgage broker and the title company, they look at the closing date of the contract, they're like, oh, we got time on this one, and they sling it to the bottom of the pile. I want to take and put pressure on them to get this closed as quick as I can. So I'm going to give you the 30-day close, but with all the refis going on and stuff like that, I don't want to commit my customer to something they can't do. So I'm going to hold this 15-day addendum, and I'm not going to take and show it to anybody, but I want to have it signed so you know that, hey, look, I have a realistic timeline of 45 days. I'm not blowing sunshine anywhere, but at the same time, I want to take and show you that by saying all this to the other agent, they know I've done this before. I'm familiar with the process. I sound like a deal closer. At the end of the day, guys, one of the biggest things is that interaction when you have with the other agent. They can take and swing the customer one way or the other. If your offer is close, I say, hey, look, this other guy is pretty close. He seems like he's good. And you want me to see if I can get them to come up a little bit? I think we'll have a better shot at getting a deal done with this guy. I've had that happen. I've done that. The other agent submits an offer and I never hear from them. The other agent called me up immediately. Here's the offer. Here's all the supporting documentation. What else do you need from me? How can we get this done? This guy's hungry. This is going to be somebody that I can actually depend upon to hold up their side of the transaction, right? And so one of the big sections of the class toward the end is dealing with other agents, because nothing kills a deal faster than another agent.
Really?
Oh, sure. The lazy agent. That's one. How do you deal with the lazy agent? The agent that doesn't want to do anything. The agent that just basically drops the ball on everything and waits for somebody else to pick up the pieces. Well, how do you handle that? Because, again, if the timelines get missed, your deal dies too. You don't get paid. Maybe they don't get paid and you feel good about that because they're awfully lazy and that something bad should happen to them. But at the end of the day, you're there to take care of your customer. So what do? Well, with the lazy agent, you start copying everybody else in the transaction, showing that you're constantly bombarding this agent to follow up with them to make sure that they're doing what they're supposed to do. If it's still not happening, you circle in their broker into that same email chain. You make sure that you're BCCing your customer if it gets bad enough. So your customer sees, because here's the problem with the deal killers. When the deal dies, here's an interesting phenomenon. You're not the only one that's upset. The customer is upset. Even if they're the one that killed the deal, a lot of times they're upset. And they're mad at you. They're often mad at you. This flies in the face of everything that I teach, which is we don't close deals, we close customers for life. So the emotional experience of this customer is part of my job, managing that. I need to manage their emotional experience. So if I say to them after we're done, hey, what was home buying like? You're like, man, it was pretty good, man. I enjoyed this. I learned a lot. That's what I'm shooting for.
Now, you mentioned earlier about distressed properties that where the revelation comes at sort of the 11th hour. Oh, this was a brothel, I've just learned.
Yes.
It's not cool.
Yeah.
What are the laws around distressed properties?
Well, I mean, any inspection report that comes back is going to make you feel like just about any property was a formal brothel.
Really?
Sure. I mean, it's 83 pages of everything. And it starts from this, right? Understanding others. It's one of the things I wrote down on my sheet. There's only 3 notes that I really have, and one of them is understanding others. You got to understand the customer. We talked about that in the last segment. And understanding, what is the home inspector's motivation? Well, he charges his little fee, and he does his inspection. It takes hours to do a home inspection properly, right? How many of those could he possibly do in a day? And if he was booked all the time, you can get an idea of how much money this person could possibly make. It's not a huge living, right? So what they don't want to do is get sued and lose any of that. So their motivation is, and there's no counterpoint to this really, to find everything that could possibly in any universe under the sun go wrong with this house.
CYA, yeah.
To cover their backside.
Yeah.
So it's not that they hate us as agents. It's that they just don't want to lose what they got going on. Here's the thing. It's not enough for me as the agent to understand that. You know who needs to really understand that? The buyer. I want to make sure they understand that before they see that home inspection report. Understand, look, this person's just looking to cover their backside. So they're going to find, if a meteorite could come out of the sky and hit this house, they're going to say it's in a meteorite unprotected zone. Like, it's going to be on the report. So, expect it on the way in. I'm preparing my customer in advance to make sure that that home inspection report isn't perceived by them as, oh, wow. I mean, I see home inspection reports all the time. They don't. I know they're 83 pages long. They don't. So when I see it comes in at 78 pages, oh, wow, this is smaller than the normal ones. That's pretty good, right? Yeah. We need to recognize, again, the difference between us and them. They just don't know things that we do. And we need to take and make sure that we're managing their emotional state through this transaction by filling them in. Agents act like they need to not tell them more. I'd rather spend more time telling my customer more and educating them about what I do so they, A, fully understand and respect what I do, and B, Is somebody that's looking to con somebody going to take and fill them in on the backside of what's going on, explain to them the stuff that they don't need to? No, they're not. They're looking for this person to genuinely understand the transaction that they're in. So I'm going to explain to them where the home inspector is coming from. I'm going to explain to them the mortgage process, what the title company has to worry about, and all of these things. And then obviously the other deal killer with the inspection side of thing is, okay, now we've settled on what needs to be done. Somebody's going to fix this. We're going to take it with this stuff here, and we've got a sort of an agreement. Okay, who makes sure that gets done? How is that done? Because again, that's liability for you. It could be another deal killer. They didn't fix the sink. It's still dripping. I'm not closing, right? What to do when the seller doesn't actually do the work they said they agreed to do prior to closing? You go to walk through the house. Everything is still the same way it was. What do? Do you not close? Is anybody happy when you don't close? Do you escrow? How do you escrow? How much do you escrow? What's the agreement look like? Does the agent do the agreement for the escrow? Does an attorney do the little surprise here? The attorney always does that agreement. You always have the attorney do that agreement on the escrow, right? But all of these are tools that not every agent recognizes in their tool belt to get a deal closed. A home warranty. It's one, I don't use it a lot, but it's another one to put in your back pocket when nobody wants to take and kind of come together, have a meeting in the minds on the repairs. Say, hey, look, you've got a risk that this stuff is going to break early on in this deal. I know you just put a whole lot of money out to buy this house, whatever. As a buyer, you're reasonable to be concerned. The sellers want to make $10,000 worth of repairs to things that he says are all working right now. And maybe they're beyond their usable life, but they're all working right now. What if we spend $400 and get you a home warranty? And that secures you for the first year that you don't have to worry about these things. Does that mitigate the risk enough for you where you feel comfortable closing? It's another half step in between that most agents don't realize in their tool belt. The seller doesn't have to buy it. The buyer doesn't have to buy it. Anybody could buy it. Some guy named Joe on the street corner could decide to buy a home warranty for this house just because he likes you. I don't know, right? Anybody can buy it. And so recognizing that's a tool that you have to help you get by these deal killers is something most agents don't realize unless you've been through the pain and suffering of losing a few and say, hey, is there any way we could have done this differently? Oh, yeah, you could have just done this. Seriously? Now you're telling me? So I try to have that class be the seriously, now you've been told.
Gotcha. Good stuff, Josh. I feel like I've learned a lot already. Jerry, how about you?
Absolutely.
Yeah, we're getting smarter by the minute here. Wow, if we stay with you another couple of hours, we'll... fill in the blank.
They're good life lessons too.
Yeah, exactly. All right, we're up against a break here. We need to take a very, very brief pause in the program, and we'll be right back with you after this.
Hi, I'm Jason Jacobs, and you're listening to the Royal Palmcast.
Hi, I'm Karen Borelli, and you're listening to the Royal Palmcast.
Hi, this is Bob Wade, and you're listening to the Royal Palmcast.
Do you own a second home or a vacation property? Do you rent it out to vacationers? Local governments across Florida are over-regulating your ability to rent out your property. RPAC fights these regulations and defends the rights of homeowners across Lee County and Florida. Invest as little as $20 in RPAC today to help us fight unwanted government regulations. For more information or to invest, contact Kevin Besser, the Director of Public Policy, at kevin@rpcra.org.
In these challenging times, the Royal Palm Coast Realtor Association continues to adapt, providing evolving resources and education for our members. We're here to serve our members with comprehensive, new, innovative, and alternative platforms. Through member engagement, community involvement, and ongoing advocacy for property rights, we're committed to empowering realtors with superior service and advancing support for our fellow neighbors. In Southwest Florida, RPCRA is your association.
Welcome back to the Royal Palmcast. I'm Jim Sanville with Jerry Johnson and our guest, Josh Cadillac. Josh Cadillac is an educator in the field of real estate. He teaches all over the USA, maybe beyond. Do you ever teach internationally, Josh?
I haven't yet, but
not yet.
It's on the table.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, they say Canada's nice in January. So
I'm doing South Dakota in February.
Well, that's about the same thing, I think. But in any event, we're here in beautiful sunny Florida and Fort Myers in our case. And if you are listening to us elsewhere in Florida or around the country, watching watch for Josh. And he's on social media. He's got a website, of course, and we'll give you the contact information at the end of the show. Today we're talking about a topic that I find really interesting, deal-killing mistakes. Josh has learned from experience what can happen and how to remedy it, how to avoid it, and that's what he's here to talk with us about today. Now, Josh, one thing that comes to mind is that occasionally at the 11th hour, maybe the 11th hour, 59th minute, right at closing, boom, the thing blows up. Have you seen that happen?
Sure.
What kind of things cause deals to blow up at closing?
Well, I have two that I'll give you. One is more of a negotiating thing, but the other one was actually it's one of those deal killers that I don't even know how to fix it. We had a situation. The customer had put down $15,000 deposit on the property. We got the home was being bought for, I think, for like $260,000. We got the appraisal in at $278,000. 2 days before the closing, the wife says, "I'm not going to close. I don't like the house." Now, we had gone through the entire lending process, the underwriting, with the title. Everything is done. There's $18,000 in equity in the home. I mean, my feelings are hurt, period. As the agent, my feelings are hurt. Because, I felt like we really got this guy something good. This is the kind of thing that, let me tell you about my agent, right? They got me, in this market that nobody can find anything. They got me a house with equity, right? She won't close. I spent 2 hours on the phone with her. The title company spent an hour and a half on the phone with her. Wouldn't close. Guy lost the money. I mean, I've got to figure there's maybe something else going on. Maybe the guy had a girlfriend, or I don't know, right?
Gotta be
something, right? But how do you avoid that one? How do you dodge that bullet? And it just drives home the point. You can't get them all to close. There's going to be some attrition rate, but there never should be a contentment with the rate that you have. There's always got to be, how can we squeeze this a little better and how can I have cut this problem off at the pass? So one of the big ones we run into is title issues. Well, the reason why is because the title company is doing the title search, 3 days before closing.
Yeah.
Why don't we get this done sooner? The sooner it's done, most title issues that exist, that are possible, can all be dealt with, given enough time. Now, the contract gives us a built-in 30-day extension if there's a title issue for the seller to get it cured. But once again, you're still kind of coming to the buyer with your hat in your hand and saying, "Hey, look, we got to extend because of this." And if it goes beyond that 30 days, now you're really with your hat in your hand, because now you have to ask the buyer whether they're willing to stay in the deal, or you've lost all this time, right? And so figuring out how to take and give yourself the best possible chance, setting yourself up. It's like when you watch athletes, right? Professional swimmers. They shave their body hair because it'll take 1 nanosecond off their time, right? It's not a huge difference, but they're setting themselves up to be as successful as they can possibly be. We're trying to strip off all the little things that are slowing us down from running the best possible race that we can, right?
Now, Josh, I almost killed a deal myself at closing when I was buying my first house. I'd be interested to know how you would have handled this. The situation was, I was buying a house from a young couple who lived in a market 50 miles from where the market was that I know very well, that I grew up in. So 50 miles from there, I'm buying a house. And they apparently have some different customs in that market, and which came to light at the closing. And so we signed almost all the papers, and I guess we had signed them all, actually, so the deal was done. But here's what happened. I said, "Okay, where are my keys?" And they said, "Well, we'll give them to you in 30 days. I said, 30 days? This is my house. I just paid for it. Here's the check, and where's the keys? Well, customary, you move in 30 days later. I said, not where I'm from, it isn't. And I don't see anywhere in this contract where it mentions 30 days from now I take possession. I want it now. That's why one of the reasons I bought this house, I told my realtor, I need to be able to close immediately for whatever reasons. I want to buy a house as soon as possible. And this is the house I bought. And give me my keys, please. And it was kind of the blustery response. So what would you have done? And I'll tell you what I did, but how would you have handled that?
Well, there's a few issues there. I mean, it depends on what state it's in. If it's down here, 100% post occupancy is a super no-no in Florida. You now run into an issue of no longer eviction if the people don't leave. It's an ejectment. An ejectment can take a year or two in court. Ooh. Yeah. Post-occupancy is always a really messy thing. And so I always try to avoid it. You're in a situation now where it's really the other agent's fault. It wasn't included in the paperwork. And if it's not included in the paperwork, I'm sorry, there's a problem. If you don't have, and again, it's going to depend upon the laws in the state that you're in, because if you're someplace else besides Florida, I don't know where this occurred. What state was it?
State of Maine.
Okay, so yeah, I have no idea what their laws are regarding getting someone out post that stays longer than they should. How you protect yourself is really going to be the most important thing. Obviously, you have a financial loss that you're going to take because now you have to take in. You're being damaged by the fact that they have not abided by the agreement that they signed, which is the house has been conveyed. I have possession.
Yeah, as far as I'm concerned, I own it. I can be hard about it,
And so, I think the place to go is, look, guys, you want to stay, okay, but you're going to have to make me whole for my cost now of having to find a place to be. You are now making me experience a loss. So I would charge them rent, and I'd sign a short-term lease.
It's as if you were in the room. That's exactly what happened. I said, look, you guys want it for 30 days. I want it now. I'll split it with you, 2 weeks, but I'm going to charge you rent. Sign this. Somebody drop some paper on a napkin here, and they did. They agreed to pay me, half a month's rent for a half a month's stay.
Sure, and that was nice of you. You didn't have to be that nice, but it was the right way to do it, because you always need to have clearly spelled out who was doing what and why. If it's not, one of the big things we talk about in a different class, the 2-day class, we talk about this a lot. Agents get locked into this idea of thinking that they're attorneys. And they like to use that section on page 11 of the FAR bar contract that says additional terms to show their creative writing skills. And so I say, let me tell you what happens with that, right? You take and you put an addendum together in there. It's great, right? And contract gets signed, and of course there's a problem, and now there's a lawsuit. And of course it has something to do with the language that you have in the addendum. So the attorney gets you on the stand and he says, "Did you write this?" He said, "I want you to know I read what you wrote. It was so good. I wept. It was amazing. This is the most beautiful stuff I've ever seen. Thank you. Thank you for writing this. By the way, where did you go to law school?" And in the background, you hear a toilet flush, right? Because there goes your career, right? We're not attorneys. We need to take and be super clear and specific. If we're writing language in a contract at all, in Florida, we have actually stepped into a gray area of practicing law. Mm-hmm. We are actually creating contracts. Now, it's something we have to do kind of, in our business. It's a risk that we decide how much we're willing to take, right? Before we get the real estate attorney involved. And that's what I would encourage agents always to do, is figure out what you're comfortable with. Like, the contract date will be extended to X. That's clear. I don't think there's a whole lot of room for misinterpretation. Post-occupancy, I'm going to pay this much rent. If I stay too long, this is what's going to happen. That's the attorney's grounds. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. We're doing something that's much more complicated. So again, it's a matter of making sure that you look at it and say, okay, if I was the kind of person that was looking for where this is ambiguous, how I'm going to mess with what I just wrote, if you can find anything, you know what, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, whoever you're working for, I think we should have the attorney do this, because I want to make sure you're protected. I think I can do it, but you know what? It's too important. You guys are too important to me to have something I do harm you in any way.
Yeah. Now, I'm going to ask you a rhetorical question. Do you recommend that both parties in a real estate transaction employ an attorney for every transaction?
Not ideally. It's one of the nice things about Florida that we don't necessarily need an attorney. It's their choice. The real estate, our contract is pretty cookie cutter. It's a fill-in-the-blank contract. Right. I always tell them that they have the ability to get an attorney, and I have good attorneys always that I can recommend, because you never know when it's going to get messy. A lot of times, if I have, again, I don't work with buyers very much anymore, but if I have a buyer, I'll have the buyer get representation, because the seller in my area, the buyer picks and pays for title. So I'm sorry, if I have the seller, maybe get seller's representation if I think it's going to be a little bit messy, because it doesn't really cost them anything. The title company would have charged them that anyway. So it really depends on the transaction. If it's a condo with a special assessment, you know what? I could fight, or I could have the attorney fight.
Have you ever experienced a situation where, ooh, gee, they should have gotten an attorney because they're in trouble now with this?
No, not really.
No.
Believe it or not, I mean, I'm trying to think back if I have one where usually you can have a pretty good sense that there's something coming. I mean, I'm very much a believer in kind of recognizing the kind of people that you're dealing with on the other side of the transaction. And, you can usually get a sense for whether or not the people on the other side of the transaction are litigious.
Are honorable and all that stuff.
I had this thing called ethics, I think, And so,
gotcha.
Yeah.
Right.
Ethics is a big thing. Actually, I did a
thing
course
around
on ethics.
here.
Yeah, we're all about ethics. Realtors obviously follow the code of ethics from NAR.
Sure. Well, I wrote an ethics course with my brother, who's a philosophy professor, and so when he went into the ethics, actually, there was a lot more material in there than just what the code of ethics is. It's not just what you're supposed to do, but why you should do it, why it's good for you as a human being.
What's the rationale? Yeah.
Well, more why you're a better person this way. This actually has a benefit to you that you can't see. And one of the most interesting things, and I just give you this because I think it was super interesting, is he says that every single decision you make actually changes who you are. It's building a habit of the type of person that you're going to be. And he said to me, the way he illustrated is, the show Friends, we talked about Friends, right? You look at Friends and you watch an episode and Joey will eat 12 meatball subs and he's so, but the next show he doesn't put on an ounce, he doesn't look there are no consequences, right? And he said, human beings don't work that way. There's consequences for everything that we do, right? He said, it's more like if you watch Chandler's character, who gained a bunch of weight loss because he was struggling with drugs and alcohol throughout the show. You can see the result of his moral choices actually on his visage in the show as it goes on. I thought that was a really interesting insight. I can't take credit for it. It's my brother.
Yeah.
But, the idea that ethics are more than just a set of rules we follow, it's actually what historically, going back all the way to Socrates and those guys, thought was the route to the best possible life that someone could live. And at the end of the day, as agents, business is part of what we do, but we have to live our life. The people we're becoming from what we do matters. And so trying to have this holistic view of keeping our business in the box that it should be in, but understanding the decisions we make in that box affect everything that's outside of the box. It changes the people that we are.
Gotcha. All right. We are almost at the end of the show, but before we leave, Josh, can you leave us with one more kernel of wisdom?
All right.
About deal killers and how to avoid them.
All right, I'll change it to a deal killer one. The one thing that came to my mind immediately was for agents to know their product better. Was the first thing that comes to mind. There's three things that I wrote down at the beginning of this. Recognize that you're in a negotiation. Understand other people, whether it be the other agent, your customer, whoever. And then the third thing is to know the product. If you know the product better, it always gives you something to talk about. It's always something that the customer will be interested in. And it's going to separate you from the other agents out there, because the really crazy thing is, if there's one thing real estate agents don't know, it's their product.
You're talking about the agent who says, look, these are beautiful counters versus these are Italian granite that were...
These are agents, I would say, that's good, to be able to know, look at the millions on those are, but the financial benefit, the fact that this home is a hedge against inflation, this is going to get Johnny and Julie closer to going to college. I actually did a side-by-side comparison in my 2-day class of a purchase versus a rental on a 5-year hold. $325,000 purchase versus $2,550 a month rental with standard rent increases and standard property appreciation. The difference to the customer after 5 years was about $60,000 benefit to the purchase versus the rental. And I was being very fair. I mean, I had reserves for replacements in the purchase. I did everything I could to make it as fair as I could. And the difference was $60,000. Guys, $60,000, that's $1,000 a month. That's what we help customers with every single day. And agents don't talk about it because they just don't know it. Mm-hmm. And that, you know what? That's on us. The people that are deciding, what they see and what they learn and what we talk about. They want to talk about the neighborhoods and the schools. Let them understand this is the best financial decision they may ever make in their lives. And every second they spend in that rental is 1 second that they are closer to living a lower quality of life than they could have. if they made another decision.
Interesting. Completely true. Completely true. Hey, Josh, thanks so much for taking the time to be with us today.
My pleasure.
How can people get in touch with you if they would like to do so?
For the education side of things, acecloser.com. That's where my education schedule, all the places I'm teaching, a lot of stuff by Zoom right now, but a lot of the stuff in the later part of the year is all either hybrid or currently booked. Currently booked is in person. And if you want to reach me personally, Josh at joshcadillac.com. If you like Instagram, Josh D. Cadillac.
Gotcha.
So you can follow me.
Good stuff. Good stuff. And by the way, you can reach us here at the show and let us know what you would like to have us cover in terms of topics. If you have a particular guest you think would be good, we'd love to hear from you. And you can do that by sending an email to shows@rpcra.org. shows@rpcra.org. Jerry Johnson, thank you very much.
Hey, thank you, Jim.
It's been a good show, hasn't it?
It's very entertaining and informative, and I loved every minute of it.
I feel saturated with knowledge.
Absolutely.
Now.
I want more, so maybe have to try to get Josh back for like 3 or 4 more episodes.
That's what I'm thinking. Yeah. We'll
yeah, it was great.
Yeah, good stuff. Hey, and I want to thank Beata Jones as well. Beata is our CEO, and she could not be more supportive of this podcast called the Royal Palmcast. And she also is very supportive of our sister podcast, Realtor Riff Rap, with host Nick B. Jealous. Really, really good show. And we also do a YouTube show called Realtor's Corner. Nick is the co-host of that with Joanna Rowell. So we invite you to check that out on YouTube. And I also want to thank the staff here. Do you know how nice the staff is to work with, Jerry? That
I do.
We work with some good people.
We have a great team.
We work with some good
Amazing
people. Yeah, it's good stuff. All right. Again, my name is Jim Sanville. I want to thank you for listening, and we'll look forward to talking with you again next time.
Thanks for listening to the Royal Palmcast. Be sure to listen again each week, share, and subscribe on your favorite podcast app or YouTube. And be sure to check out our sister podcast, Realtor Riff Rap, and our video news show, Realtor's Corner, which can be found on the Royal Palm Coast Realtor Association Facebook page and YouTube channel. For information about sponsorship opportunities for this and other RPCRA productions, email us at shows@rpcra.org. This has been a production of the Royal Palm Coast Realtor Association.